Okay. Before we begin, let's take a few moments to worship the infinite compassionate one, the immeasurable one, the exalted one, the Supreme Buddha. To do this, I would like you all to be upstanding and recite the Namaskar with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, you all may now be seated. So today we'll start off with something a bit new. So before we start, let's make a firm determination. So I would like you to make a firm determination with me. May the qualities of the Maharats enter my heart. May I also have these qualities, and may they all help me go through my path, follow the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of enlightenment. So making a firm determination, let's begin. So today, we're going to talk about a phrase that most of us may have heard many times. First come, first serve. But today I'm going to change the meaning a bit and change the phrase a bit as well. First serve, first come. And you'll see why a bit later. So today we're going to talk about the story of the most venerable Anya Kondanya, the great Arhat. The way he had strived to attain Nibbana, the journey he took. So to start that all off, let us go back to the time of the Buddha Padumuttara. Okay, so back at the time of the Buddha Padumuttara, in the town Hansavati, lived a rich householder. This householder enjoyed doing merits. He spent most of his time doing merits, giving alms to the Mahasangha and so on and so forth. One day, while he was in his house, he saw through the window a group of people. They were wearing white, carrying flowers, incense sticks, oils, candles, and this householder, seeing them, felt an urge, felt like he needed to go to the same place that they're going, because he knew that they'll go to the temple. So he decides to go to the temple with the group. So when this group arrived at the temple, they saw that the Buddha was preaching the Dharma. So each of them sat in the crowd and started to listen to the preachings. Near the end of this discourse, the Buddha had appointed a title to one of the monks. He said, "Today, I appoint the title, the foremost among the monks who understand the Dharma." Hearing this householder was wowed. He was speechless. Imagine that, seeing a monk being appointed the title, the foremost monk who understood the Dharma. Look how great he was. His householder thought, I really, really wish I could be someone like him. I really wish I could be the foremost as well. Instantly, this monk became this householder's role model. A person who he really wanted to become. He was overjoyed hearing this event. So after the discourse concluded, he went straight to the Buddha, worshipped at his feet, and instantly, then and there, invited the Buddha and the Mahasangha to his house to give a massive dana. So when this householder went to the Buddha, he didn't go to the Buddha because he felt like it. He went to the Buddha because he saw a group of people wearing white clothes, walking to the temple. That's all he saw. And seeing that, he felt the need to go to this temple. So you can look at those people. Look how great those people were. Could you imagine these people running around shouting, screaming, laughing loudly, making jokes? No. They were great people, being able to encourage someone to come to the temple, to join them without saying a single word. Now that's something hard to do. Anyway, after this householder invited the Buddha and the Mahasangha to his almsgiving, he worshipped the Buddha and went immediately to his house. There he decided what he wanted to do. All through the night, he decided he wanted to make a place for the Buddha to sit. He decorated with flowers, with fragrances. He decorated to the best he could. Now that was the Buddha. He invited the Mahasangha as well. To be exact, he invited 100,000 monks. So one by one, he created a seat for them as well. Decorated it all to the best he could. Imagine that. Look how much courage he had. Think about it. Say it was 5 seats. Okay, 5, that's it. 10, 20, 30. Now after 5, 6, 7, you're like, still another 46, 45, 44, 43, 20, 10 left. And then this household didn't make these seats for 50 or 500. He made it for 100,000 monks, decorating each and every seat. And in the morning, he woke up extremely early to prepare the food that he would like to offer to them. He decided he would offer the best he could. He decided he would offer fragrant hal sahala rice. And before the Mahasangha arrived, he went abroad. He went to a different country. He went to the country Manga, because that was where the best cloths were made. He made 3 robes out of the best cloths he could possibly find. And after offering the dana to the Buddha and the Mahasangha, he offers these 3 robes and worships the Buddha. But in his head, a thought arose. The wish that I have, it's not small. It's something that's incredibly big. And offering 1 alms is just not enough. So he decides he would give alms for not just a few days, but for 7 days consecutively. And these 7 days were like the first. Again, he decorated each and every seat to the best he could, gave the best food he could. He served the greatest he could. And every day, so first day he offered 3 robes to the Buddha. For the next 6 days, he offered 3 robes to each of the Buddha and the 100,000 other monks. And on the final day, after he offered the robes, he fell on his knees in front of the Buddha, brought his hands together in veneration, and said, "O Venerable Sir, 7 days ago you gave the title for the foremost among the monks who understood the Dharma. I wish to be the same. I want to be like him. I want to be the foremost among the monks who understood the Dharma in the time of another Buddha." So the Buddha looked through his divine eye to see that it will happen. So he told this householder, in 100,000 eons in the future, in the Okasa clan, the Gautama Supreme Buddha will be born. You, sir, will be able to listen to his first sermon and attain the state of Sotapanna. And therefore, he gave him the prophecy that he would become who he wanted to. This was one of the last prophecies that the Buddha gave, that the Buddha Padumuttara gave. Because in very little time, within a few months, the Buddha passed away. You see, the Buddha Padumuttara was special because he lived a very long life, of 100,000 years. He was the Buddha that lived the longest. And therefore, when his body was cremated, he didn't leave behind any relics. Instead, his body didn't burn. Just like, it's described just like gold. Gold doesn't burn in fire. So the people of the town, Hansavati, got together and built a large pagoda. They made this pagoda with golden bricks. It is said every time they needed clay, instead they used gold. And every time they needed water, they used sesame oil. They built a very large pagoda and placed the body of the Buddha there. This householder every single day would go to this pagoda and offer flowers, offer candles, oils, incense sticks, worship the Noble Chibu Gem. And due to all the merits he has done, the 7 days of giving dana to the Buddha and his Mahasangha, and all of the merits he had done by offering to the pagoda, he was born in the heavens and lived a life of luxury for many years, even until the birth of the Buddha Vipassi. So, at the time of the Buddha Vipassi, in the town of Bandhavati, in a pottering clan, so a clan whose main job was pottery, was born a son called Mahakala. And within a few years, his young brother, Chulakala, was born. So, the Buddha Vipassi, after attaining Buddhahood, asked the Mahabrahma, Mahabrahma, I have attained Buddhahood. Tell me, who should I preach to first? And the Mahabrahma thought about it. He had the choice of deciding who gets to listen to the Dharma first. And so Mahabrahma, searching throughout the lands far and wide, looking through the heavenly words, said, in Kema De Park, Prince Kanda, your younger brother, and the son of the chief advisor, Tissa, are ready. You should preach to them first. And so the Buddha, by foot, made his way to Kema Deer Park and started to preach the pristine Dharma. After listening to the Dharma, the two, his younger brother and a friend, a very good friend, a close friend, became the first two arhats. So the Buddha Vipassi, before he became the Buddha, was a prince. Just like the Buddha Gautama was Prince Siddhartha, Buddha Vipassi was also a prince. And his younger brother obviously was a prince. And the chief advisor, the son of the chief advisor, was also someone very popular. And so they had a lot of friends. So just like you do to your friends, after some time you go meet them. But having heard that your friends have ordained, these friends decide to meet them as well. So 84,000 rich barons, sons of great clans, princes from all around the country came together to go see the Buddha and the Venerable Kanda and the Venerable Tissa. Unfortunately, when they arrived, they sat down, ready to listen to the Dharma. And having listened to the Dharma, at the end of the discourse, they also became arhats. So in front of the assembly of arhats, the Buddha Vipassi gave the titles of the chief disciples to Venerable Kanda and Venerable Tissa. So the king of the town Bandhavati, the king of the place, so the Buddha Vipassi's father, or his lay father, thought that I haven't seen my son in quite some time. I haven't seen both my sons, to be precise. I would like to go meet them. So he told his advisor, I would like to meet my son. What should I do? His advisor said, your son has become the Buddha, and your younger son has become an arhat and a chief disciple of the Buddha. So the king thought, so two of my sons have renounced. One of them has become the supreme Buddha, one of a kind, and the other had listened to his Dharma and had become an arhat, and not only an arhat, but the chief disciple, sadhu sadhu. And I've also heard that their friends have also become arhats. I must go meet them, and I must give them an alms, as they're all friends and family. I must do it all by myself. So he gathered all the servants he possibly can in the palace and told them, I would like you, servants, to place tall bushes of thorns from the entry of the palace all the way to the entrance of the monastery. So imagine that. So from the monastery that the Buddha and the Mahasangha are currently residing, from there, all the way to the entrance of the palace, these servants placed these tall bushes of thorns. And the king told them to cover these thorns with white cloths. And he told them to hang a canopy made of golden chains. So you can imagine the golden chains above their heads. And on these chains hung golden stars, large golden stars. And they placed a very soft carpet on the floor, sprinkled flowers, flower petals all over, placed large vases of fragrant flowers, and here and there would sprinkle fragrant powders such as frankincense. It was a sight, but unfortunately, it was like a tunnel. The citizens of the town couldn't see inside. So, after completing all of this, the king went to the Buddha and invited him for alms. So the Buddha silently accepted the alms, and the Buddha and the Mahasangha made their way to their palace. So they went through the tunnel, and the king gave alms, and they went back to the tunnel. Not for a few days, but for a few years. Every single day they'll do this, and the citizens of the town couldn't help, let alone give offerings, let alone listen to the Dharma, let alone see, just to see the Buddha. They weren't allowed. This stirred the crowd. People started to talk here and there, saying it was unfair. It was unfair that they can't give anything to the Buddha. Soon, small talk became meetings. And so meetings turned into bigger meetings, and eventually the whole town would come together in one place and discuss that it was unfair, that they can't give anything to the Buddha, and they were going to do something about it. So one of them stood up and said, "Look, friends, the Buddha has been in this world for many years, and we haven't been able to see or give anything, not even a spoonful of food. And all of this because of the king. The king thinks that he owns the Buddha, he owns the Dhamma, he owns the Sangha, that it's all his. And it doesn't belong to anyone but him. It doesn't belong to anyone but him. And so he's the only one allowed to offer. That is unfair. He won't let us even help, nor even let us see." Another one stood up and said, "The birth of a Buddha is very rare. If we don't use this chance, if we miss this chance to do merit, if we miss this opportunity, if the birth of the Buddha is very rare, we can't miss this opportunity. We can't miss the chance to do all this merit. So I say, by any means, whether by hook, whether by crook, whether it means war, whether it means a fight to the death, we shall fight to the end until we get given the chance to give alms to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the Noble Triple Gem." Wait, so I'll take a moment there. Sounds drastic, right? Sounds a bit crazy, because they are going to fight for merit. They're going to do demerit for merit. But they may have not understood that this was bad, because first, they weren't able to listen to the Dharma, so they don't know the baseline of good and bad. That could be one thing, but also they also knew how valuable the Triple Gem is, how very rare. Tell me the one word that has been used the least in this sansara. Yes, you guessed it. The Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. The three words. They are called the Noble Triple Gems for a reason. Gems are rare but very valuable. If they're rare and valuable, they thought that they had the idea that they're going to fight for it. For you to do merit, do you have this sort of determination? I'm not saying to start wars or any of those drastic ideas. Let's not be that radical. But are you determined to give alms? How much value have you given the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Sangha? for these people, they're willing to die for it. I wonder why. So, the leaders of this to-be civil war go up to the palace, ready to talk to the king. And just before they meet the king, they bump into the royal commander. The royal commander asks them, what are you doing in the palace? Do you have some message you want to give to the king? Because it has to go through me first. Now let's not forget, this talk has been in the town for maybe months, maybe years, maybe. So the people in the palace also knew that there was talk about a revolution, about a civil war. So they knew a bit. So the leaders asked, Royal Commander, we are going to fight for this cause. Are you with us or are you with the king? Now, this Royal Commander is very sneaky because he knew that if he said he's with the king, these leaders would do something to him, whether it's by to kill him or whether to harm him or disgrace him. Anyway, to save himself, he says, I'm with you guys. But these are people who have sworn to the king that they would risk their lives for the king. But anyway, this commander gives one condition. I am with you guys for one condition. I will convince the king to give everyone the chance to offer alms. But you must give the first day to me. And so these people thought, okay, if the royal commander is on our side, because he'll be a great strength to our war, okay then, you get the first day. So the royal commander went into the throne room where the king was on his throne, and he went in front of the king, bowed down, and said, Your Majesty, I have a message to give you. The king asked, What, royal commander? What sort of message do you have me this urgent? The royal commander answers, O great king, there's a wave going through the town, a wave full of anger, and your royal majesty, the anger's aimed at you. People on the street are insulting you. People on the street are spitting at you. The king was surprised, ashamed almost, and said, Royal Commander, why are they doing that? Why are they insulting me? Why are they doing all this? What have I done? The Royal Commander replies, Your Majesty, they are angered because you are the only one who can give alms to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. You're the only one who could attend to their needs, offer them with the things that they need. You're the only one who could earn all these merits. But, Your Royal Majesty, you have the choice to change it all. A group came up to me and said that they're planning to start a war, start a civil war, to start a revolution, to overthrow you, so they can offer alms to the Buddha and his Mahasangha. They won't stop it until you give them the chance. So you have the chance, you can stop them. You have the choice of stopping them. Give the citizens a chance to give alms. The king smirked. He had a smug face on and said, Let the citizens fight. I am the king of the country. I have all these great soldiers behind me. If they fight, I will win the war. But I won't give them the chance. I won't give it to them. Now the royal commander stood up, saying, Your Majesty, this is a small, very slight problem. Your soldiers have taken the side of the citizens. Your Majesty, how would you fight the war without your soldiers? Now the king was baffled. My soldiers have taken the side of the citizens? How could they? But remember, the soldiers also were people who didn't have the chance to give to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. And so the king said, Royal Commander, I don't need to worry, because I have you. You are the royal commander of my army. You can fight. I shan't be scared. The color on the royal commander's face drained. He went stiff and said, Your Majesty, how can I fight a war by myself? Hearing this, the king knew that he has lost. He knew that the citizens were now very powerful, that they have everyone in the town, they have his soldiers, and they also have the royal commander. And the king knew that he couldn't fight on his own. So the king, defeated, told the royal commander, Commander, if that's so, I have nothing to do but to give them a chance. Give them the opportunity. So go back to these people and say, give the king 7 more years. And after these 7 years, I would allow them to give alms forever. Forever and ever and ever. I give them a chance to attend to them, to offer them food, to offer them anything that they need. After 7 years, just 7 years, Commander. So the commander went to the citizens, stepped up in the middle of the crowd and said, Citizens of the town, the king has agreed to your terms, but he gave one condition. He said he'll allow you to give alms. And people started to cheer and shout. He said he'll let you offer food, attend to their needs. Now more cheering. But he gave the condition that you have to wait another 7 years, and then he'll let you have the opportunity. The crowd went silent. Pin dropped silent. 7 years? Whispers started to appear in the crowd. 7 years? 7 years is way too long. We can't wait 7 years. And one of them stood up and shouted, Royal Commander, 7 years is too long. We can't wait that long. Tell the king that we'll still fight for the chance if he doesn't reduce the time. And so the royal commander stepped down and went to the palace. Went to the king and asked the king, Your Majesty, the citizens disagreed. They said they can't let you have 7 years. It's too long. They've checkmated the king. The king can't step here or there. So the king only can do what the citizens ask for. And told the commander, okay, we'll give them 6 years. Say 6 years. Come on, 6 years. And so the commander went back to the citizens and said, 6 years. Same response comes back. And so the same response is given. Too long. So the commander goes back and the king says 5 years. Back and forth. 6 years turns to 5. 5 years turns to a year. A year turns to 7 months. ... 7 weeks, 7 days. And you can imagine the royal commander near the end of it was exhausted, walking from the massive meeting, the gathering of the citizens, gathering of the town members, and the king. Walking here and there. So at last, after 7 days, the royal commander, exhausted, goes to the king and says, Your Royal Majesty, and he said, your last request was too long. Okay then, Royal Commander, you leave me no choice. They leave me no choice. Fine, 7 days. Take it or leave it. And so the commander goes back to the gathering and says, 7 days. That's all the king asked for, 7 days. This time, no one disagrees. They all agree that 7 days is a sufficient amount of time. They agree with the king. And so the citizens, the town members were shouting, screaming, celebrating that they finally had a chance. After 7 days, they'll be able to give alms to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. So, the royal commander goes back to the palace one last time and says, Your Majesty, great news. The town members agreed. So you get 7 days and that's it. And so the king was heartbroken. He planned to give these alms for the rest of his life, for at least another 7 years. But now these 7 years became 7 days. So he thought he's going to give the maximum he could in these 7 days. So the king decided he was going to give the best he could, and the best of could is what he gave. For 6 days, he invited the Mahasangha to his palace, and they went through this tunnel, this beautiful tunnel, and he gave alms in secrecy. And on the 7th day, he told the servants to remove all the thorn bushes, to remove all the white cloths. He opened the door of his palace. He stepped up onto the altar and said, "Citizens of the country, today is my last day giving alms. Now, you will witness how I have given alms for this long period of time. Now the question is, can you match this? Can you give alms like this?" And then it started. They saw the Buddha and the Mahasangha making their way to the palace. Leading them was a set of dancers with traditional drums being played. The conch was blown. It was a majestic sight. Seeing the golden stars twinkle in the sun, citizens would stare. They saw the Buddha and the Mahasangha make their way to the palace. And when the Buddha and the Mahasangha went into the palace, the king showed everyone his banquet, full of delicious food in various varieties. Sweet, savory, everything. And after the alms had ended, he showed the citizens what sort of robes he had offered them. Expensive robes. Robes. Just remember, the Buddha and the Mahasangha were arhats. These robes were useless to them, but they still accepted it because the merit that the king was doing by offering this was immense. But anyway, he offered this, and after the alms giving ended, he stepped back onto the altar and addressed the bystanders. You have seen how I've given alms for the past years. Can you do the same?" And one guy in the back of the crowd shouted, "Oh, Your Majesty, you have had this chance of giving such great alms because all the money you possess. But don't forget, O great king, that the money you possess comes from the hard work from us. The hard work that we've done. Your money comes from us. Therefore, no matter how great you offer your alms, we can do better." Hearing this, the crowd started to laugh. The king, flabbergasted, was pale. He was shamed in front of the whole town. The king was someone who was undefeated. He won every war he fought. But today, in front of all these hundreds of thousands of people, he had lost. His eyes started to swell with tears. And so he stepped down off the altar and went straight to the Buddha. He went to the Buddha and said, Oh look, Buddha, look at what's happened to me," while wiping his tears. "O enlightened one, without giving anyone the chance to give alms, I for many years have offered it to you. But today, the citizens of the town, of the country, won't let this happen any longer. Because of this, I answer, from tomorrow forth, because of this, O exalted one, tomorrow forth, you'll be attended by them." And like promised, the very next day, the royal commander gets the very first chance to offer to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. And after the royal commander, the citizens divided the days between themselves, and they gave alms way better than the king could ever dream of. Came the time for Mahakala's alms. So Mahakala, being told that in a few days was his alms giving, he went to his younger brother Chulakala and asked, "Tomorrow, oh brother, it's our chance to give alms. It's our turn. The possibilities are endless. How should we give it?" Now, let's not forget that these are people from not a high clan, not from a high caste. These are potters who make their livings by making pots and selling them. But Chulakala wasn't someone very religious. He was someone who liked to relax, not to do anything. So he would work hard and then in the evening just relax. And so he said, brother, you know more about this than me. Just leave me be. Don't annoy me. Anyway, you know that I don't understand any of this either, giving alms and whatnot. But Mahakala didn't give up. He decided that I will try to get, even though my younger brother doesn't want to give alms, I could still get him to join in because they only had one paddy field between them. And so Mahakala said, younger brother, we have a paddy field, so let's give rice from that. But Chulakala says, no thank you. I don't want to give alms to this Buddha or this Mahasangha. If you want to do it, you do it by yourself. I'm not going to help you. Take the rice from your own paddy field, but don't take a grain of rice from mine. Okay? At this moment, how would you feel? Where your brother, your closest brother, says, no, I'm not going to do any of this. You do it all by yourself. It's rubbish. It's a waste of time. It could either be, okay, if it's a waste of time for you, it's a waste of time with me as well, and leave it alone. Or would you become really angry and start shouting and screaming at your sibling? No matter what you would have done, Mahakala didn't do any of that. He thought that, okay, I can't do anything that involves Chulakala, his brother. So what can I do? How can I offer alms without disturbing him? Because if a single grain of rice came from his side, or came from him, instead of doing merits, he'll be doing demerits. He'll be doing bad karma, which will lead him to be born in a hell. So what Mahakala did was, he decided to split his paddy field into two. So he said, okay, this part's for my younger brother, this part's mine. And from his side, he took the first and the best part, and he cut the first and the best part out of his paddy field and made rice with that. You see, he didn't use water. Instead of water, he used milk. And he mixes milk rice with chatumadura, which is almost a sweet, almost a dessert. He did the best he possibly could. Remember, he's a potter, right? He didn't have much money. He didn't have many assets either. He did the best he possibly could, and he gave alms. You see, he gave the first and the best part to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. It's funny because we've heard the phrase, first come, first serve. He served first. He gave the first serving to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. So you see what he got in return afterwards. Every stage of the harvesting process of this rice, so whether it's cutting or whether it's putting them into a bunch, putting them in storage, counting, measuring, he would always remove the first and the purest, the best part aside for the Buddha and the Mahasangha. Now I'm going to step aside from the story for a minute. He always gave the first and the best part aside. You'll see what sort of vipaka, what sort of result came from all this. But can't you do the same as well? Can't you also give the first and the best, purest part to the Buddha and the Mahasangha? You may grow vegetables in your garden. Why not offer the first and the best fruit or vegetables to the Buddha when you give Buddha puja? Say you don't have a garden. Possible, right? Then why not, when you make some sort of food, a delicacy or anything, why don't you offer the first bit to the Buddha? I remember a monk used to tell me, if you get a piece of chocolate, give a part to the Buddha and Mahasangha. Chocolate? I don't mean a massive chocolate bar. He didn't mean it by that. He meant, a very small piece of chocolate. Offer a tiny bit of that to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. The first part. First, purest part. So tell me, would the Buddha say no? Would the Buddha say, no, don't give me small chocolates, I don't take those? Obviously not. The Buddha won't say no. He would accept everything and anything. Say you've decided to eat biscuits. Can't you offer one biscuit to the Buddha and the Mahasangha? Is it hard? Are you losing much? You're giving the first and the purest part to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. Let's say, what happens if you do a job? Your salary. Why not set aside a part of your salary to the Buddha and the Mahasangha? So when you get your wages in the end of the month, why not set aside, not much, a pound or two, a few rupees, few dollars, few yens or whatever currency you use, just a few, not much, to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. The first part you give to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. Can't you do that? And let's say you earn pocket money. I remember back when I used to earn pocket money. I remember I used to hoard all that money for some sort of dream I used to have. But not in a single day did I think I should give a part of this to the Mahasangha, the Buddha and the Mahasangha. Couldn't comprehend what sort of merit that was. And so I didn't do it, unfortunately. But you guys have a chance. Children out there, if you earn pocket money, you may not earn a lot. I say set aside 1p, so 1 pence, 1 cent aside. So say you earn, say, for washing dishes, say you earn £1.50 because your parents give you pocket money for washing dishes. And it's £1.50. Why not put 1 pence into a different container for the Buddha and the Mahasangha? Because it may seem so small. But number one, the Buddha would never say no to it, number one. And number two, and in school you probably learned about the compound effect. 1 pence would eventually become a few pounds. A few pounds will become great enough for you to give alms. Let's say you work in a shop. The first object or first thing you sell, the money from that, you give to the Buddha and Mahasangha. You collect it. It may not be much, but you collect it. And when it becomes an amount that is enough to give alms, give it. You worked hard. You work hard every single day at work, but you separate the first, the purest, the best part for the Buddha and the Mahasangha. Trust me, if you do something like that, your life will change drastically. Okay, let's carry on. So, Mahakala would give merit for as long as the Buddha lived, would give alms. So Mahakala would give alms for as long as the Buddha lived. And due to all the merits he had done, he was born, obviously, in the heavens. So think about the merits that he had done. So his job was pottery, but his way of feeding himself was through this paddy field. Every stage of this harvesting process, he would give the first and purest part to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. So, before the Buddha Gautama was born, in the Kimbulwatpura town, in the Dronavastu clan, in a very rich Brahmin village, was born a baby boy. This baby was named Kondanya. At a very small age, he learned the 3 Vedas. And he not just excelled the 3 Vedas, but he was a person who knew physiognomy to a great extent. The science of physiognomy, being able to look at someone's body and to be able to predict or to foretell the future. Now, we've heard this word 3 Vedas for quite a while. And we've heard that, for example, people learn these 3 Vedas very easily. But the funny thing is, learning the 3 Vedas was extremely difficult. People would take many years, many decades to learn these 3 Vedas, to excel in these 3 Vedas. But Kondanya was a very smart child. Within no time, he learned the three Vedas. And so, at that time, the Bodhisattva was in the Tusita heaven, and his lifespan was ending. So after looking at the time, the place, the race, the clan, and the mother, he was born, he was conceived in the town of Kimulwatpura, in the kingdom that belonged to King Siddhodana, in Queen Mahamaya's womb. And after 5 days, the King Siddhodana decided that today will be his naming ceremony. So the King Siddhodana invited the best Brahmins who knew the three Vedas. So he gathered 108 of them. So let's not forget, King Siddhodana was a very powerful king. He searched for the Brahmins who knew the three Vedas, and he only chose 108 of them. Now, you can guess who was in the 108, right? Kondanya was in that 108. Not only was he in the 108, but after attending to their needs, he chose the smartest, the cleverest, well, the people who were almost the leaders. 8 of them. And guess what? Guess who was in those 8? Who was in these 8? You guessed it. Kondanya. So these 8 include Ramya, Dajaya, Lakkana, Mandya, Bhojana, Suyamya, Sudante, and Kondanya. So after addressing the baby, they looked at the baby's body and they discussed between themselves on what they should name it. So the baby was given to the first Brahmin who looked at the body and showed 2 fingers, and said that if the Buddha stayed in the lay life, he would become a world-turning monarch. But if he ordains, he will become the supreme Buddha. And so the baby was given to the next one, and the next one, the next one. 8 out of 7 of them said the exact same thing. They held up 2 fingers and said, this child would become a world-turning monarch. But if he ordains, he will become the supreme Buddha. The last but not least, but definitely the youngest, Kondanya, was the last person to look at the body. He wasn't a sheep. But I mean, he wasn't someone who just followed the crowd. He looked at this body very carefully. So imagine 7 out of 8 of the best people, best Brahmins who excelled in the 3 Vedas, showed 2 fingers and said these 2 things. But Kondanya wasn't someone who gave up and said, not even gave up, just followed the crowd and said, yeah, 2 fingers, those 2. He looked very carefully. And so, between his eyebrows, a silver color urana curl. And so Kondanya thought, if he is to become a monarch, it should twirl on to the left hand side, and it should be a gold color, but it has spot on the right, and it's a silver color. So he's definitely not a monarch. He will definitely be the supreme Buddha. Saying this, he held up 1 finger and said, friends, this prince will be someone who eradicates all defilements. He will not live a life full of sensual pleasures. He will definitely renounce and become the Buddha. He will bring happiness to the world. He will definitely become the Buddha. And so again the Brahmins took turns and again looked at the body and agreed, saying that, oh really, we missed that part. He's going to become the Buddha. And so they saw that this child will give meaning to the world. And so they named him Siddhartha. So as we know, in the story of the great artist Asaji, related that they went back home to their sons and daughters, to their children, and told the children, King Suddhodana's son, Prince Siddhartha, was given a name today, and he was said to become the Buddha. By the time he becomes the supreme being, by the time he becomes the Buddha, We will be old, and we will definitely not be alive by that time. But you, sons, daughters, are very lucky. You will be alive at the time. You'll be at an age where you understand the Dharma. So ordain under him. Ordain in his dispensation and follow his path. Maybe they weren't even talking about their children. Maybe they're talking about someone else. I don't know. Read between the lines. The Prince Siddhartha became of age, got married to the Princess Yasodhara, and came the day when he renounced and he went, as the story of the Buddha goes, as life of the Buddha goes. But by that time, Kondanya was the only one alive out of the 108 Brahmins. Now you can guess the age difference. And Kondanya thought that this was the right moment for them to ordain. So he went to the houses of these great Brahmins, and almost all of them weren't alive. The ones that were alive were very close to death, on their deathbed. So he went to the children of these 8 Brahmins and told these children, I am going to ordain, and I'm going to find this ascetic Gautama and follow him, because he will become the Buddha. He will end suffering once and for all. You see, your fathers, they had died, not having to hear his preachings, his discourses, and died with sadness in their hearts. Do you want to do? So out of the 8, Vappa, Badhya, Mahanama, Asaji decided that they want to join his journey. They want to join Kondanya's journey. And so they appointed Kondanya as leader, went in search of the ascetic Gautama. It wasn't too long when they found the ascetic Gautama in a forest practicing extremism, giving his body extreme pain. And so these 5 now ascetics went to the ascetic Gautama and helped him, attended to his needs, practiced under him. So by this time, the ascetic Gautama had gone to Alms, Karam, Uddhakara and Putta and learned and excelled their teachings. And so he decided he would practice extremism. So it came to a time where the ascetic Gautama decides that he is going to starve himself, to reduce his food intake, because he likes food. That shows that Prince Siddhartha was an ordinary human. He enjoyed food. But in front of these 5 ascetics' eyes, the Buddha's health was degenerating. He was losing weight fast. Near the end of his 6 years of extremism, he had put his body to the limits. It is said that they could see his ribcage, every single bone of his ribcage. His veins were like ropes wrapped around his body. It is said that his arms were like bamboos, and the joints were like the ridges of the bamboo. They could see that his eyes were sunken inside of his skull, and to look in his eyes was like to look in a deep well. And when they look at his stomach, they could see his spine. He practiced extremism to the limit. But then ascetic Gautama knew that if he went any further, his life's going to end. So when he decides that he's going to stop practicing extremism, and when he gets up to go for a meal, to go around for alms for a meal, the 5 ascetics left him. They thought that to become a Buddha, you have to practice extremism, to put your body through as much pain as possible, and then you could find the path to be free from all suffering. They saw within no time that his complexion was coming back. They knew that he had given up his journey to becoming a Buddha. So they left him to go to Isipatana. So after that, the Buddha had met Sujata and had taken the meal of very expensive milk rice, and again met Satya, who gave soft grass to make a cushion almost. And so at the age of 35, the Asti Gautama attained enlightenment. After some time, the Buddha wanted to go to people that helped him attain his state. So the teachers in the Brahma realms, and so the 5 ascetics were in Sipatana, Day Park, in the city of Urval. And so he made the journey by foot. A Buddha is a person who can do anything. He has got so much supernatural powers that he could do almost anything, but he decides to make the journey to Isipatana by foot. Every single step he took, he irradiated compassion. Every step he took, he irradiated loving kindness. And so these 5 ascetics saw in the distance that the ascetic Gautama, who they thought who was still ascetic Gautama, was arriving. They thought that he had lost, and so he's come back to apologize. So they said, "Oh look, the ascetic Gautama is coming. He's returning after failing from his journey. He's probably come and tell us some things, but let's not listen to him. Let's not even help him. So when he comes up, let's not take his alms bowl. Let's not do anything, because he's lost. But let's not forget, he is the son of the king. So at least let's give him a seat." But the Buddha kept going. Every step he took, he radiated compassion. He radiated loving kindness. He radiated the 4 Brahma Viharas. And as he got closer and closer, these qualities filled the hearts of the 5 ascetics. And out of these hearts filled with compassion, and they couldn't resist, but they had to. They felt like they had to run to the Buddha and take his alms bowl. Run to the Buddha and set up a place for him to sit. Run to the Buddha and wash his feet. After the Buddha had taken a seat, they asked, "Brother Gautama," and the Buddha replies, "Monks, you can't call the Buddha brother. I am the Buddha. I have eradicated all defilements. I have stopped all suffering. I will preach to you the Dharma, and you will also be able to get rid of all that as well." They were confused, they were perplexed. How can he be the Buddha? And so they asked, "Brother Gautama, we don't believe you. You can't be the Buddha. You tried for 6 long years. You starved yourself. I remember seeing you shake. I remember seeing you shiver. I remember seeing you faint on the floor, not having enough power to stand back up. But now it looks like you lived a life of luxury." And so the Buddha again explains, "You see, ascetics, a Buddha isn't a one who practices extremism. A Buddha is a one who lives with sensual pleasures. A Buddha is a person who perfected the noble 8-fold path." But the ascetics still couldn't comprehend that he was the Buddha, and said, "Brother Gautama, we still can't believe you. How could we believe that you have become the Buddha? We thought it was impossible." And so the Buddha replied, "Ascetics, have I ever told you that I have been the Buddha, that I was the Buddha? Have I ever told you that I have become the Buddha? Have I ever tricked you or fooled you to thinking that I have become one? Have I ever lied to you?" The 5 ascetics said, "No, Venerable Sir, you have never trolled us, tricked us, or even lied to us." "Then monks, understand that I have become the Buddha. I have understood how to eradicate all suffering. You can listen to my Dharma and relieve all your suffering as well." The 5 ascetics thought, this must be true. The Buddha has never tricked us, nor fooled us, nor have ever lied to us. So they knew that it was true, that ascetic Gautama has finally become the Buddha, that he has finally become the Supreme Buddha. So, on one very special full moon Poya day, on Esalapoya, was the day that the wheel of Dharma was turned. It was the day where the Buddha preached his first sermon. It was a day where a person became Sotapanna. It was a day the Buddha preached the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. This is the sutta that all Buddhas who come into this world preach. It is the first time that will be the first time that this world had heard the truth, the Four Noble Truths. Now, this sutta was a very special sutta, and we would like to welcome you all to join us as we chant the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta on the 31st night, all night until the dawn of the very next day. The sutta that changed the world forever, that helped many beings to become free, that relieved many beings from suffering, eradicated defilements. The sermon that revealed the truths about the world, and a sermon preached by the Venerable Sariputta called the Satchivanga Sutta, which is a sutta that explains the points of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. These two sutras will be chanted all through the night from the 31st, beginning of the new year. So, we hope you can all join us in the chanting. And let's not forget, this was the sermon that helped Kondanya become a Sotapanna, to become Anya Kondanya, the first Sotapanna, the first being after the Buddha to understand the Dharma, to relieve himself from suffering. And guess what? Guess why do you think he was the first? Why do you think he was the first person to understand the Dharma? First come, first serve. First serve, first come. He served the first part to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. He served the first and the best and the purest part. And guess what he got in return? The best and the purest thing that could be ever, state that could ever be attained. He became a Sotapanna, the first being ever. Imagine that. The first person to understand the Dharma, to eradicate all defilements, to live a free life, was the Venerable Anya Kondanya. First serve, first come. So if you want the best vipaka, the best result, the best and the purest, you have to give the best and the purest, because that's the principle of the world, right? You get what you give. What goes around comes around. If you give the best and the purest, you get the best and the purest. And the best and the purest is what? Nibbana. So just like we made a firm determination to instill all these great qualities within us, maybe not all at a time, but one by one. I would like you to take one thing from this half of the story. We'll carry on the next half next time. Is to give the first, the best, purest part away to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. And I'll guarantee that you will get the best and the purest back. Okay. So, on the 31st December, so in a few days, our monastery is holding an event of the chanting of the Dhammacakka and the Satchivanga Sutta, which I would invite you all to join. This is the discourse that Anya Kondanya became Anya Kondanya. Kondanya the first, chanting it all night long until we enter the New Year's. We start the New Year's with the first sermon of the Buddha. We start the year with the Dharma, hoping that the Dharma will be with us throughout the whole of next year. It will help us on our path to liberation. So I invite you all to the event on 31st. And I hope you will be able to give the first and best part to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. So this was the first half of the Venerable Anya Kondanya. So we'll conclude there. But before we conclude, let's take a few moments to transfer merits and conclude the sermon. Let's take a moment to transfer merits that we required by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting Feud, listening to Dharma, and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. So first and foremost, let's remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of the Lord Buddha's teachings. And with immense gratitude, let's transfer the merits to the Bhikshu, Bhikshunis, Upasikas, Upasikas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha and passed it down to the generation of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, to understand, to comprehend the Dharma. Let's also transfer merits required to all the members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all the chapters, who dedicate their lives to no path and committed themselves to betterment of all sentient beings. Let's not forget that among them will be the monks and nuns renting local temples and nunneries, who has always been by his side, thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's also transfer merits to the Guru Sahib and all the other monks resident in the monastery, as well as the Anagarikas. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to Guru Sahib and all the other monks resident in this monastery, as well as the Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits and express our gratitude to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teaching of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these sermons, sharing them out with others, inviting others to join them. May the power of the merits, if any of them have been born on the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born on the blissed plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits required toward our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes every one of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, to those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes, medicine, as well as those who pass on their know-hows and extend their well wishes. May through the power of the merits, may they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employers, employees, and all those who helped us, support, assist us in any way, shape, or form. By the power of the merits, may they be healed of any physical or mental ailments. May they overcome any obstacles in their spiritual progress. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill their eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons, primarily the Sakra Devas, as well as the numerous gods and deities who have continued to protect and fulfill the Sambhava Sasana. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us, keep us out of harm's way. May through the power of these merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our ancestors who predeceased us, to all those who have been our friends, family, acquaintances in this infinitely long journey samsara, and to those who have helped us, support, assist us in any way, shape, or form. Let's transfer these merits. Let us also transfer the merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those who lost their life in war, be their friend or foe, rejoice in the merits required today. Let's also transfer merits to all those who lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who've been our friends and family to us in this long journey of samsara. Let's take a moment to transfer merits to them. May the power of these merits, if any of them have been born on the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born on the blissful plane. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, let us all resolve, may through the power and blessing of all the merits required throughout the day, we bear witness the event of many hundreds of thousands of arhats in this blessed land. And finally, may through the power of all the merits required today, you and I and everyone who made this program success become Arhat Nivasi or Arhat Mahini Nivasi in his very life in the ear of the Gautam Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So we conclude the sermon there. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you all.